Cue motivational music. Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name's Dean and I'm a designer on a quest. A quest to further understand the creative industry and learn as much as this noggin will hold. Join me as I share my discoveries and tap into the minds of some of the most well-respected creatives in the world. This is my creative therapy. Hello and welcome to episode 4. So in this episode I'm going to talk about different ways to get into the industry, specifically the design industry, because that's what I'm most familiar with. I've sort of seen how the system works and by no means am I an expert. I'm still learning every day, so yeah, here's what I know. So there are around 3 to 4 ways to get your foot in the door and start making money as a creative. I'd say the first step before throwing yourself into 1 or 2 is to find out what areas excite you most and to experiment. Experimenting with sketching, drawing, making things, using software. Experiment with, After Effects for motion graphics, Photoshop for photo manipulation, different types of paint brushes and calligraphy pens, social media platforms, the whole lot. And experiment with research. Don't just get your inspiration from one source. There's so much out there besides the traditional sites like Behance and Pinterest. Just find what works for you and do what you enjoy doing. So I guess a lot of people believe that you need a degree to get into the creative industry. And although it might be one of the requirements from the employer when you're applying for a job, it doesn't mean to say you need one. So the work and the person behind it definitely has more weight than a qualification. And I remember this guy started in my old place and he was around 16 and he didn't have a degree, but his work was awesome. And that company found a way to bring him on board. And for some legal reasons, they had to bring him on as an apprentice first because of the working hours or whatever. But in my opinion, all that degree is, when you take away the commitment and the drive and the passion, is the opinion of your tutor. The industry isn't like accounting or law or, working in medicine. There is no right or wrong in design or creativity. What your tutor might hate, your future employer might love. That being said, I felt university helped me massively. It didn't just improve my skills, but it made me feel more aware of how high others had set the bar and what I needed to do to make sure I was on par with them or better. I think it helped me take life a little bit more seriously as well. So one of the first ways to get into the industry, I guess, is to go freelance. So through experimenting and research, you might realize that your work has a consistent style to it, which could open doors for freelancing opportunities where in a commercial environment you'd create bespoke artwork for brands directly and create a relationship with them, or you'd work with creative agencies who become the middleman who will usually sign the work off as their own to their clients. You'll obviously get credit for doing it. You'll be able to showcase it on your website or whatever, but sometimes the agency holds the rights to that artwork. You might want to sell your own work to the general public. There's loads of online platforms out there that can assist with this, like Artnet is definitely one that springs to mind. The traditional view we have of being freelance is, waking up whenever you want, become your own boss and just live the dream. And in some cases, that's true, but 9 times out of 10, you're working around the clock, chasing payments, rushing artwork, and clock watching. Not because you're bored, but because you want to make sure you're getting paid the amount you feel that you should be. And the amount that you charge, whether that's hourly or daily, really depends on how much you value your own time. But if you can find that sweet spot where you feel like you're charging the right amount and living a decent work-life balance, then and you don't take your laptop to bed with you, then you're winning. Another route into the industry is one that people are probably most familiar with, and that is working within an agency or a design studio. And typically you'd probably be creating artwork for brands from across the spectrum. You know, you might be working with well-recognized to small upcoming brands. The setups in terms of roles within the teams are quite varied depending on what area of design or creativity you decide to get into. Roles usually begin at junior designers, then midweights, then seniors, creative directors, and depending on what type of agency it is, you might have creative strategists, UI, UX designers. It really depends on the area. The good thing here is that there's a chance to work within a team of mixed skills and a team of mixed creatives, and it can give you a decent understanding of the process and the benefits of collaboration. The only slight negative thing about working within an agency, in my opinion, is the turnover of work can be crazy fast, which can be a good thing. You know, working on your toes and being put under pressure can actually sometimes produce the best kind of work. You know, there's no time to hesitate, less decisions to be made. Obviously, a fast turnaround of work doesn't always create the best executions too. And the pace of a project is usually directed by the client. And it reminds me of a meme that says this quite well. And I think it was like one graphic split into two, and the top half was an image of Jason Momoa. I think that big guy with all the tattoos and the hunk, with text saying over the top, client brief. Then underneath was this real scruffy looking skinny dude walking out the water saying client budget. And that pretty much just, sums it up quite well. Another approach is to consider working in-house. Quite self-explanatory really, but you'll be actually within the organization as opposed to working from the outside in. And you could be working with marketeers, social media managers, have an analytics team. And again, you can find these types of roles within an agency as well, depending on the company's services, I guess. So I've had a lot more experience working in-house than working at an agency, but I know a lot of people that have and do. And the main difference between the two really is you'd only be creating work for the organization you're in, unless there's partners involved or whatever. But primarily, you'd probably be focusing on creating artwork which adheres to the company's guidelines and their message, which can sound boring, but from experience, knowing the guidelines and how flexible they are can make the project you're working on, feel your own. And sometimes working with agencies, you have, so many people involved and on one project, it can feel, although you're working on it, you haven't got much control over it. Another benefit from working in-house, in my opinion, is you're constantly surrounded by your work. And I don't mean this by, a poster that lingers behind you when you sat at your desk. I mean, you're almost in an environment where every decision you make will in some way have an effect on the organization, whether that be internal staff from promotional material and, they've seen that, or some social media advert that went out to the public, which has changed the way that people think of the brand. Just knowing that you're part of that journey of transformation can give you an awesome sense of achievement. So yeah, I hope that helps.